What teacher made you hate school? For me, it was Ms. Harrison. She ran her English class like a strict monastery where only she was allowed to talk. She believed teenagers couldn't learn while speaking because our brains weren't developed enough to multitask, something she read in some outdated education journal from the 90s. Even during group projects, we weren't allowed to talk. We had to pass notes quietly between desks. She even had an app on her phone that measured noise levels, and if the class got louder than a whisper, she'd slam her hand on the desk and make us start the assignment all over again. On the first day, she made us sign contracts agreeing that any talking meant automatic detention and a phone call home. She once gave a kid detention just for sneezing too loud, claiming he did it for attention. Her class was torture, especially for kids who learned better by talking things through. For 50 minutes, we sat in total silence. If you had a question, you had to write it on an index card and wait for her to collect it at the end. Partner work felt like being in prison, sliding papers back and forth. She made us use different colored pens so she could see who wrote what, checking that both partners contributed without speaking. A lot of kids failed her class, not because they didn't know the material, but because they couldn't figure out what she wanted. The guidance counselor got flooded with complaints, but when they observed her class, Ms. Harrison brushed it off as an innovative teaching method that prepared us for test conditions. I figured out that if you controlled your volume carefully, you could whisper just low enough that the app didn't catch it. My friend Jade and I practiced at lunch until we found the perfect level. It was risky since Ms. Harrison would randomly patrol the room, but sometimes you had no choice. She also had this old camera in the corner, claiming it was just for security, but everyone suspected she used it to spy on us. One day we were doing peer reviews on essays about symbolism in The Great Gatsby. That meant 40 minutes of silently sliding papers back and forth while she sat at her desk grading. I was paired with Aiden, a quiet kid who never caused trouble. About 10 minutes in, I noticed his hands shaking as he tried to write on my essay. His breathing grew short and shallow, and he kept clutching his chest like he couldn't get air. I recognized it instantly. He was having a panic attack. His eyes were wide with fear, and he was hyperventilating, but trying to stay quiet because making noise meant detention. He grabbed his throat like he was choking, tears streaming down his face, while Ms. Harrison stayed oblivious, humming to herself at her desk. The other students looked worried, but nobody knew what to do. I knew the risk, but I leaned over and whispered to him that he was having a panic attack and it would pass. I coached him to breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 6, keeping my voice just under the app's limit. I walked him through grounding techniques, naming 5 things he could see, 4 he could touch, 3 he could hear. My heart was pounding because I knew I was breaking the biggest rule, but I kept my voice calm. After almost 10 minutes, his breathing slowed, his hands stopped shaking, and color came back to his face. He nodded and mouthed, "Thank you." Ms. Harrison never looked up once. When the bell rang, Aiden rushed out, still shaken but okay. I thought we had gotten away with it. The next morning, Ms. Harrison stood at the front of the class with her laptop hooked up to the smartboard, smiling like she'd caught us. The paused camera footage from yesterday filled the screen, showing an angle we didn't even know existed. Before today's lesson, she said, pressing play, I want to share something I discovered while reviewing our recordings for my teaching portfolio. The video showed me leaning toward Aiden, and she turned up the sound so everyone could hear my whispered voice counting breaths and listing grounding steps. Then she asked the class, can anyone tell me what rule is being broken here? Full story on the channel. Link below. Click now and watch what happened next.